I am Emily Hayes, senior writer at the publication Script, here at the Biotech Showcase for the annual meeting in San Francisco. I'm here with Renee Aguiar-Lucander.
Hi.
Hi, Renee. Renee is the CEO of Calliditas in Stockholm.
Yes.
And the lead candidate for the company is Neffecon, which is a formulation of the steroid budesonide.
That's correct.
And can you tell us a little bit more about the product, how it's different from the other formulations that have been on the market?
Sure. So our particular lead product, Neffecon, has a unique formulation that's actually a two-step formulation, because what we are doing is we have it's quite unique, we're actually trying to target the origin of the disease, which is IgA nephropathy, and that actually happens in the gut, so we need a way to actually being able to deliver this active drug a couple of meters into the gut. So we do that with a two-step formulation, which is a capsule that actually then contains coated beads. These beads are coated kind of in triple layers with various polymers. So actually the capsule itself remains intact as you kind of swallow it, so through the stomach and through a large part of the smaller intestine. And as it then dissolves, as it gets to the ileum, and there actually releases these kind of active beads. So that you then have a very kind of rapid onset, so it's very specific dissolution curve. So actually has a release profile is such that actually we have maybe a 2-hour window or so where actually the drug is released. So very much targeting to the ileum itself, because we want to try and get to the Peyer's patches which are located there.
And what is the intellectual property situation for the product?
So we have a formulation patent, which have been granted in all kind of major regions, which runs until the 2029. And also obviously IgA nephropathy is an orphan indication. So on top of that, we will obviously have the orphan drug protection as well, both kind of in the US and in Europe. And we also recently, in last year in April, we filed a new patent, started a new kind of patent estate, which is a method of use patent. So we're hoping to actually be able to develop that to even further protect the product.
And what is the relationship between IgA nephropathy and end-stage kidney disease?
So IgA nephropathy it's a variable, kind of fairly slow-moving disease. But actually what we do know is that up to 50% of the patients that actually contract this disease will, over a period of time that can range anywhere from kind of 5 to 20 years, will end up at a risk of having end-stage renal disease and will therefore be at risk of having dialysis or transplantation.
And how is that treated currently?
So there's nothing approved for this indication today. So actually IgA nephropathy is a very large orphan indication. So we did our own prevalence study in Europe for about 200,000 patients in Europe, and we're estimating the US population to about 130 to 150,000. But there's actually nothing today that's been approved. So what happens when people get this diagnosis is that they first actually is put on kind of blood pressure lowering agents. And that is because obviously proteinuria, so the fact that you're leaking protein through your kidney, is something that actually that's one of the signs of this disease. So reducing the pressure over that leaking membrane is really the rationale for putting patients on these blood pressure lowering agents. So antihypertensive care is taken by these RAS blockades, so ACEs or ARBs or combinations thereof. So that really would be something that I think is a fairly kind of standard approach to that's what physicians would do today, nephrologists would do. So beyond that, obviously, as I said, we know that this doesn't really kind of help up to 50% of the population over time. And so actually there isn't anything approved. So the only thing really that's been done previously is that actually you have very high doses of systemic steroids, such as prednisone or prednisolone. And actually what's been proven, unfortunately, in recent kind of publications and studies has been that actually this leads to often to severe infections, and even in these trials showed mortality in the actual kind of dosing arms. So this is obviously kind of not necessarily kind of an approach that's that kind of appropriate necessarily for this patient population, where you have a lot of people who might be in their 30s and 40s and otherwise very kind of active. So I mean it is really a really big, huge unmet medical need for this patient population today.
And your company raised, was it $82 million last summer to fund phase 3? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, so we listed on kind of the Nasdaq exchange in Stockholm in June. We raised $82 million, as you said, and that with that kind of capital, so we're in the mid-cap section of kind of the Stockholm main market. And so with that, we're going to be able to complete our phase 3. So we just actually enrolled a first patient, actually dosed first patient in November. And so it's a 200 patient trial in our phase 3. And so it's a global trial, so we're doing it across 19 countries and up to 150 clinical sites. So it's a fairly significant logistical undertaking. And actually so we need to actually recruit 200 patients into our phase 3 in order to then have a readout of that and file with regulatory authorities for market access.
And when we have the top line data?
So we're targeting to have the top line data at the second half of 2020. So actually now have started recruiting patients, and so we're on plan as of today in terms of actually hitting that.
And are there any opportunities for accelerated approval?
So this would be an accelerated approval. So we're running this under the subpart H regime in the regulatory area. So this would be an accelerated approval that we would achieve on the basis of these 200 patients.
And can you go over the timelines?
Sure. So the plan is, as I said, so we've started our phase 3, and the target is then to recruit the 200 patients and be able to read out top-line data in the second half of 2020. We then obviously would need to put a file together and file with regulatory authorities sometime in 2021.
So it would be after the phase 3 data?
Exactly. And so then we would hope to have get an approval and then be able to commercialize the product either at the end of 2021 or early 2022.
When do you think you'll need to seek additional financing?
So the findings that we raised recently will take us through the phase 3 and also up until the regulatory filing with the authorities. So from that perspective, we would seek to have additional financing either from a commercial perspective to raise money to commercialize the product. We are planning to commercialize the product ourselves in the US. And so on that basis, we would need to seek additional financing for that. Alternatively, also we would have, to the extent that we have some pipeline indications as well, that we had all other orphan indications that we intend to go and have conversations with the FDA about this year. So if that was to lead to our ability to do other late stage trials in other orphan indications, then that may also obviously trigger a need for us to potentially raise additional financing.
Do you have thoughts on the kinds of partners you'd like to have outside of the US?
So I think that it's not something that we've entered into at this point in time, but obviously if you look at, for example, the European market, it is quite a fragmented market from a sales and distribution perspective. So I think obviously from our perspective, we'd like to have a partner who, which already has existing distribution capabilities in the most, more important most important European markets, and obviously also hopefully that is familiar with the orphan. With orphan indications and have those relationships in terms of both reimbursement and sales and distribution.
Thank you, Renee.
Thank you.